The knock at midnight. It was past midnight, and the whole street was silent. Inside the small house, David sat alone at his desk, trying to finish his book. The only sound was the ticking of the old clock and the soft hum of his desk lamp. Everything felt calm, almost too calm. Suddenly there was a sound. A loud, urgent knock on the front door. David froze, his pen stopped moving. He looked at the clock again, 12 past midnight. Nobody ever came to his door at this hour. He waited, holding his breath, thinking maybe he had imagined it. Then the knock came again, this time louder, faster, desperate. Boom, boom, boom. The sound echoed through the house like thunder. David stood up slowly, his legs heavy. Every step toward the door felt longer than it should. His heart was beating fast. He told himself, it's probably a neighbor, maybe someone in trouble. But deep down, he felt something was wrong. When he reached the door, he hesitated. He placed his hand on the handle, then pulled back. What if it's dangerous? He whispered to himself. The knocking stopped. Silence filled the air again. He thought maybe they had gone. Maybe it was nothing. Then came a soft voice, muffled through the wood of the door. Please, open the door. I need help. The voice was female, trembling, weak. David felt a chill run through his body. Something about that voice didn't sound normal. He slowly unlocked the door and opened it just a little. That's when he saw her. A woman standing in the cold night, wearing a dark cloak. Her hair was long, her eyes glowing faintly like silver. Her skin pale, almost shining under the moonlight. She looked both human and not human at the same time. Before David could speak, she whispered, "They are coming. Please, let me in before it's too late." Her words cut through him like a knife. They carried fear, urgency, and something else, a secret. David's throat went dry. He wanted to ask questions, but his body moved on its own. He opened the door wider and let her inside. The woman stepped in quickly, her cloak brushing against the floor. She looked around as if checking for danger. Then she closed the door with her own hands. Her movements were fast but graceful, almost not human. David finally found his voice. "Who are you? What's happening?" But she didn't answer right away. Instead, she leaned against the wall, breathing heavily as if she had run for miles. "I don't have much time," she said softly, "but you must believe me." Her silver eyes looked straight into his. For a moment, he felt as if she was reading his thoughts. She spoke again. "I came here because your world is in danger." David's chest tightened. The words didn't make sense. "My world? What are you talking about?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "They will come for me soon, and if they find me here, they will find you too." David felt a sharp shiver crawl down his spine. He looked out the window nervously, half expecting to see someone watching. But the street was empty, silent. Still, he felt eyes on him, invisible eyes. The woman's voice grew urgent. "You don't understand yet, but I chose you for a reason." David blinked, confused. "Chose me? I don't even know you." She didn't flinch, didn't smile. She only stared deeper into him. "You will," she whispered. For a moment, neither of them moved. The only sound was the clock ticking in the other room. Then David noticed something strange. Her hands, they were faintly glowing, a soft light pulsing under her skin. He took a step back, fear mixing with disbelief. You're not human, are you?" The woman closed her glowing hands quickly inside her cloak. Her lips trembled, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she said, "There is no time left. They are already close." Her words made David's heart race faster than ever. Outside, in the distance, he suddenly saw a flash of light. It wasn't lightning, the sky was clear. It was something else, like a beam, like a searchlight sweeping across the horizon. The woman's eyes widened. "They found me," she whispered, almost too softly to hear. David's hand shook. He wanted to run, to lock the door again, to pretend none of this was happening. But a part of him knew whatever had knocked at his door tonight was only the beginning. The air felt heavier, charged with energy. David's safe, ordinary life had ended with that knock at midnight. And now, something far greater, and far more dangerous, had just begun. The strange guest. The house was quiet again, but David could feel the silence was no longer safe. The woman stood in the middle of his living room, her cloak dripping with tiny drops of rain, even though the night outside was dry. She didn't look like a guest. She looked like a warning, like a shadow that had stepped out of another world. David kept his distance, his back close to the wall. His voice cracked as he asked, "What do you want from me?" The woman's eyes, silver and restless, turned toward him. Her lips trembled before she spoke. "I needed a door that would open. Yours did." He didn't understand. Not fully, but those words made his stomach twist. Something about the way she said them, soft, broken, almost guilty, carried weight. She wasn't just hiding. She was running from something greater than herself. David swallowed hard, unsure whether to offer her water or to throw her out. She moved slowly toward the window, pulling the curtain back with careful fingers. Her skin seemed to glow faintly, like light trapped under the surface. Outside, the street was still empty, but her shoulders tensed as if she could see more than human eyes ever could. "They are close," she whispered. "Closer than you think." David's hands curled into fists, his fear mixing with anger. "Who are they? Why bring this trouble to my house?" The woman turned to him, her gaze sharp and endless. "Because your kind is not ordinary," she said, "and they know it." The words hit him harder than the knocking on the door had. He wanted to laugh, to call her insane, but something in her face, something fragile yet ancient, silenced him. She sank onto the old armchair in the corner, her cloak falling open just enough for him to see the strange marks on her arm. Lines of light, patterns like stars, moving gently under her skin. David stepped closer without meaning to. They didn't look like scars or tattoos. They looked alive, like a map drawn by the universe itself. "What are you?" he asked, his voice barely more than a breath. Her answer was simple, yet heavy, "Not from here." For a long moment, David said nothing. The truth sat in the room like a storm cloud, dark and ready to break. His heart told him to run, but his feet stayed planted to the floor. Part of him was afraid, but another part was curious, dangerously curious. She leaned forward, her hair falling across her pale face. "My name cannot be spoken in your tongue," she said, "but you may call me Lyra." The name rolled in the air like a whisper from another time. It felt both foreign and familiar, a name that didn't belong yet somehow fit. David cleared his throat, trying to gather courage. "Lyra, why me? Why my door, my house?" Her silver eyes softened for the first time. "Because you listened to the knock," she replied. Most would have ignored it. Her answer chilled him. Was it chance or was it something more? He remembered the moment he had almost ignored the sound, the hesitation before he turned the handle. If he had stayed in his chair, she might have vanished into the night, and with her, the secret she carried. Suddenly, a faint humming sound filled the air. It wasn't coming from the house, it was coming from outside, distant yet powerful. Lyra's eyes widened. She stood quickly, her hands glowing again, brighter this time. David stepped back, fear gripping his chest. "What is that noise?" he demanded. Her voice was urgent now, sharp like a blade. "They are searching for me. Their machines can track the pulse of my energy." The humming grew louder, like invisible wings sweeping across the night sky. David felt the glass in the windows tremble. He realized this was no dream, no trick of the mind. Danger was real, and it was coming. Lyra reached for him suddenly, her cold hand grabbing his wrist. David flinched, but didn't pull away. "Listen to me," she said, her voice fierce. "You must not open the door again, no matter what you hear, no matter how they call to you." Her grip tightened, almost painful. "They will try to trick you. They know your kind is weak to voices of trust." David stared at her, his throat dry. "How do you know me? How do you know anything about humans?" Lyra's silver eyes glimmered with something that looked like sadness. "Because we were here long before you believed we were," she whispered. "And because your kind holds the only spark they cannot steal." Her words made no sense, yet they burned into David's mind like fire. The hum outside turned sharper, closer. Through the cracks of the curtain, he saw strange lights moving, scanning the ground like hungry predators. Lyra released his wrist and stepped back, her glowing hands raised, ready. David's knees felt weak, but he knew one thing with certainty. The stranger in his house was no ordinary guest, and whatever hunted her was about to find them both. The truth revealed. The hum outside slowly faded, but the tension inside the house grew heavier. David stood frozen near the wall, staring at Lyra, the strange woman who had appeared at his door like a nightmare and a miracle all at once. Her glowing hands dimmed slightly, though her eyes still flickered with silver light. She was calm, but David could feel the storm in her silence. Finally, he broke it. "Tell me the truth." His voice shook but carried weight. "What are you really, and what do you want with me?" Lyra didn't answer at once. Instead, she walked slowly to the center of the room. Her cloak slid back from her shoulders, and the strange markings on her arms shimmered again, like constellations moving beneath her skin. "I'm not here by chance," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I crossed a distance you cannot measure, and I risked more than you will ever know to stand here in this room." Her words pressed against David like waves, strong yet hard to believe. He clenched his fists, whispering almost to himself, "This doesn't make sense." Lyra tilted her head, her silver eyes narrowing. "To you, it never will, unless you accept what I am about to show you." Then, without warning, she raised her hand, and the air between them rippled. It was as if the space itself bent, bending like glass touched by heat. David gasped as an image formed in the air, a projection not from any machine, but from her own body. A dark sky appeared, filled with colossal ships that blocked out the stars. Beams of red light scanned across a broken landscape, cities burning, shadows fleeing. Creatures with long limbs and faceless masks marched across the ground, their presence colder than death itself. "This is what is coming," Lyra said, her voice trembling with memory. "They are called the Veil, and once they choose a world, that world does not survive." David's knees weakened. He stumbled back into the chair. His mind screamed this had to be a dream, a trick, but his heart knew better. The images were too real, the fear in Lyra's voice too sharp. He looked at her, his throat dry. "Why show me this? Why me?" Lyra closed her hand, and the vision shattered, vanishing into the air. She stepped closer, her gaze sharp and endless. "Because your kind is different," she whispered, "and that difference is the only hope left." David frowned, anger rising with his fear. "We're weaker than them. We don't have ships. We don't have weapons like that." His voice cracked. "What can humans possibly do against monsters like those?" Lyra's expression softened, almost like pity. "You do not see yourselves the way others do," she said. "The Veil can consume strength, technology, even minds, but there is one thing they cannot touch, one thing that only humans carry." David leaned forward despite himself, his chest heavy with dread and curiosity. "What is it?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Lyra looked straight into his eyes, and for a moment, her silver glow dimmed to something gentler. "Your spark," she said simply, "the power that hides inside your emotions." David blinked, confused, almost angry. "My emotions? That's what makes us special. That's your big secret." He laughed nervously, shaking his head. "That's not power. That's weakness." But Lyra didn't flinch, her voice cut through the room. "You are wrong," she said firmly. "Your rage, your courage, your love, they burn brighter than any star. They are not weakness. They are weapons, and that is why the Veil fear you." Her words struck him harder than the vision. He remembered moments in his life when emotion had pushed him beyond his limits, when anger had given him strength, when fear had sharpened his mind, when love had made him unbreakable. Could she be telling the truth? Could something so ordinary be what made humans extraordinary? Lyra seemed to sense his doubt. She raised her hand again, but this time she touched his arm lightly. A surge of warmth rushed through him, His chest tightened, his heartbeat louder. Suddenly, memories flashed in his mind. Moments of pain, joy, loss, triumph. Each memory lit up like fire inside him, bright, unstoppable, alive. David pulled back, gasping, his eyes wide. "What did you do to me?" he shouted. But Lyra's voice was calm, almost sad. "I did nothing. I only opened the door to what was already there." He staggered, gripping the edge of the table for balance. His hands trembled, his body felt heavy and light at the same time. He could feel something inside him now, something he had never noticed before, like a hidden fire waiting for air. Lyra watched him with quiet intensity. "Now you know," she said. "And now you understand why they want me silenced. Because if I tell enough of your kind of truth, the Veil will lose their war before it even begins." David stared at her, his mind spinning. The hum outside was gone, but he knew it would return. The danger wasn't over, not by far. He took a deep breath, his voice low. "If what you're saying is true, then they'll come for me too." Lyra nodded slowly, her silver eyes glowing once more. "They already are," she whispered. The test of trust. The house no longer felt like David's home. It felt like a cage, a trap waiting to be sprung. The air was heavy, pressing against his chest. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound too sharp. Lyra stood near the window, her silver eyes watching the night, as if she could see beyond the dark. Her glowing hands dimmed and brightened with her breath, like a living signal. David paced the room, his heart hammering, his mind spinning. He wanted answers, but more than that, he wanted to feel safe again. But safety was gone. It had vanished the moment she had knocked on his door. Suddenly, a new sound cut through the silence. Not a knock this time, but a voice clear and calm. "David," it called, muffled but gentle. "David, open the door, it's me." David froze, every muscle in his body tense. That voice, it was familiar. It was his neighbor, Mr. Harris. The old man who lived 2 houses down, the one who always watered his garden in the mornings. David turned toward the door, confusion twisting in his mind. "Mr. Harris?" he whispered. Lyra spun around, her cloak swirling. "Do not move," she hissed, her voice sharp as glass. David blinked at her, his chest tight. "But it's my neighbor. He sounds real." Her glowing hands flared brighter. "It is not him," she said firmly. "They are testing you." David shook his head, struggling to breathe. "No, I know his voice. I know it's him." The voice outside called again. "David, please, I saw lights. I thought you might need help. Just open the door, son." It was warm, kind, exactly the way Mr. Harris always sounded. David's hand twitched toward the handle. But Lyra's voice cut through his doubt. "If you open that door, you will not see your neighbor," she warned. "You will see them." David's heart pounded harder, sweat sliding down his temple. His mind was tearing itself apart. On one side was Lyra, strange, alien, and proven. On the other side was the voice of someone he had known for years, someone human, someone safe. He whispered, "How do I know you're telling me the truth?" Lyra's silver eyes locked onto his, burning with intensity. "Because I have nothing to gain from lying, but everything to lose if you fail," she said. "Trust me, or trust them, but choose now." The knocking began again, harder this time. Boom, boom, boom. The sound rattled the doorframe, the voice turning less gentle. "David, open the door right now," it demanded. The shift in tone chilled him, the warmth gone, replaced with hunger. David stumbled back from the door, his breath shallow, his gut twisted, his instincts screaming. That wasn't Mr. Harris anymore. That wasn't human. Lyra exhaled softly, her glow dimming once more. "You see," she whispered, "they will use every trick, every mask, every lie to make you break." David collapsed into the chair, his hands gripping the armrest, so tight his knuckles turned white. "They know my name," he muttered, his voice shaking. "They know everything." Lyra stepped closer, placing her hand lightly on his shoulder. "They do not know you," she said gently. "They only copy what they hear, what they steal, but they cannot copy what matters most." David looked up at her, fear clouding his eyes. "And what is that?" he asked. She answered in a whisper, "Your will." The pounding on the door stopped. Silence fell heavy, too heavy. David's ears rang in the quiet, waiting, expecting another sound, another trick. But nothing came, only the slow ticking of the clock. Then, faintly, he heard it again, not outside this time, but inside his mind. A voice, soft and familiar. It wasn't Mr. Harris now. It was his mother, long gone. "David," it said, tender and loving. "Don't be afraid. Let me in." David's breath caught in his throat, his vision blurring. He wanted to believe it, wanted it so badly his chest ached. But deep down he knew. It was another mask, another weapon. Lyra's voice pulled him back. "They are clever," she said, "but they do not understand what binds you. They do not understand the strength of memory and truth." David pressed his palms against his eyes, fighting the urge to scream. Every piece of him wanted to give in, but something deeper, something stubborn, held him still. Finally, he lowered his hands, his voice steady though weak. "I won't open it," he whispered. Lyra's eyes softened, glowing with approval. "Then you have passed the first test," she said. David leaned back, exhausted. His heart still pounded, but there was something else inside him now. Not just fear, but resolve. The door remained closed, and for the first time since midnight, he felt he had chosen the right path. But the battle was not over. Lyra's gaze turned back to the window, her silver eyes narrowing. "They know you resisted," she said quietly, "and that means they will come harder next time." David swallowed, his throat dry. "What happens when they stop knocking and start breaking in?" he asked. Lyra looked at him, her face unreadable. "Then you will have to learn what you are truly capable of," she whispered. And in that moment, David realized the test was not only about trust, it was about survival. And the next move would decide whether he lived long enough to see the morning. The hidden power of humans. The night stretched longer than it should. David sat trembling in his chair, his ears still echoing with the false voices that had tried to break him. The door was quiet now, but he could feel the presence outside, waiting, watching. Lyra stood near him, her silver eyes glowing softly in the dark. "You resisted them," she said, her voice calm. "And that means you are ready." David looked up at her, his throat dry. "Ready for what? I don't even know what's happening." His words shook, but his heart carried a spark of defiance. Lyra knelt down, her glowing hands resting lightly on her knees. "You felt it already, didn't you?" she asked. David frowned, confused. "Felt what?" "The fire inside you," she whispered. "The spark that no machine can copy, no creature can steal, no enemy can destroy." Her voice carried both urgency and reverence, as if she was speaking of something sacred. David shook his head, tried to deny it, but deep inside he remembered the moment, when she touched him earlier and his memories had burned alive like stars. There had been something there, something real. Lyra's gaze did not waver. "Close your eyes," she instructed softly. David hesitated, fear gripping him. "What if I don't like what I find?" he muttered. Her voice sharpened. "What you find is not something to like or dislike. It is something you must face." Reluctantly, David closed his eyes. At first, there was only darkness. Then, slowly, the silence broke. He heard faint echoes, his father's laughter, his mother's gentle voice, the cries of a friend he once lost. The memories came not as shadows, but as flames, each one glowing brighter than the last. David gasped, his chest tight. His emotions flooded him. Sorrow, anger, love, regret. Too strong, too overwhelming. He wanted to open his eyes, to stop it, but Lyra's voice anchored him. "Do not run," she whispered. "Let it burn and see what rises from it." The fire inside him grew, hotter, sharper. It was not like electricity, it was not like heat. It was something deeper, something alive. Every beat of his heart spread it further, through his chest, his arms, his veins, until his whole body felt like it carried a storm. David's breath quickened, sweat ran down his forehead. He thought he might explode, but then something shifted. The fire no longer felt like it was destroying him. It felt like it was shaping him. Like a hidden strength was being carved out of his pain and his hope. When he opened his eyes, the room itself seemed brighter. His hands glowed faintly, not silver like Lyra's, but golden. A raw, wild light that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. David stared at them in shock, his voice breaking. "What is happening to me?" Lyra's eyes softened, her silver glow reflecting the golden light in his hands. "You are awakening," she said, almost in awe. "This is the core spark, the gift of your kind, hidden for ages, born from the very emotions you once thought were weakness." David shook his head, his fear colliding with wonder. This isn't real. This can't be real. But when he clenched his fists, the golden light flared brighter. The chair under his hand creaked as if pressed by unseen weight. This was no dream. This was power. Lyra stepped closer, her voice urgent now. "Do you see why they fear you?" she asked. David met her eyes, still trembling. "They? You mean the veil?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, the veil consumes everything. Metal, energy, flesh. But they cannot consume this. They cannot feed on what comes from your heart. And that is why they must break you with tricks before you learn the truth." David exhaled sharply, his chest heavy. He looked at his glowing hands again, feeling both terrified and alive. "You're saying this is inside every human?" Her voice grew grave. "Yes, but most will never awaken because most never believe." The thought rattled him. How many people live their entire lives never knowing what burned inside them? How many would die without realizing they carried something greater than any weapon? Before he could ask more, the air outside shifted. The hum returned, louder than before. The window rattled, and faint red lights crawled across the curtains. David's golden glow dimmed as fear clawed at him again. "They're back," he whispered. Lyra raised her hand, her silver light flaring to life. Her voice was steady, even as the walls shook. "This is their way," she said. "They strike when you first awaken, because they know you are not yet in control." David's heart pounded, his hands trembling with golden sparks. He felt both stronger and weaker than ever. The door shuddered, the wood groaning under invisible force. David turned to Lyra, panic in his voice. "What do I do?" Her eyes burned with urgency. "Trust yourself," she said firmly. "Your spark is not mine. It will answer only to you." The door cracked, dust falling from the frame. The voices outside rose again, whispering his name, twisting it, turning it. David clenched his fists, golden fire racing through his arms. For the first time, he wasn't only afraid, he was ready. And as the door splintered, David felt the truth settle inside him. He was no longer just a man hiding from the dark. He was something more, something new. And the veil were about to learn that humans were not as fragile as they believed. The battle begins. The door cracked under the pressure, each splinter falling like a warning. David stood frozen, golden sparks pulsing from his hands, his breath shallow. Across the room, Lyra's silver glow spread wider, wrapping her like armor. The air itself felt heavy, alive with two different energies clashing against the weight of something outside. Then it happened. The front door exploded inward, not from wood breaking, but from force tearing reality apart. Shadows slipped inside, tall and thin, their bodies shifting like smoke and bone at the same time. They carried no eyes, no faces, only blank masks that reflected nothing. David stumbled back, his chest tight. His mind screamed to run, but his legs held still. The hunters were here. The veil had found them. Lyra stepped forward, her silver light slicing the darkness like a blade. "Stay behind me," she commanded, her voice sharp. But David's golden sparks flared brighter, answering some instinct inside him. "No," he whispered, "I can't hide anymore." The first hunter moved, its body sliding like liquid shadow. It reached out with a long, jagged hand, stretching farther than any human arm could. David raised his glowing fists without thinking. The moment the shadow touched him, The golden light burst outward. The impact shook the room. The creature hissed without a mouth, its body recoiling as smoke burned from its arm. David gasped. He had heard it, not with weapons, not with strength, but with something inside him. Lyra's silver glow flashed, her hand slicing through another hunter. The creature split apart, vanishing into ash. But more shadows poured in through the broken doorway, crawling along the walls like living nightmares. David's heart pounded, golden fire racing through his veins. Every fear he had ever felt roared inside him, and instead of breaking him, it fed the light. One of the hunters lunged, its mask bent open, showing nothing but endless dark. David swung his arm, golden energy spilling like fire. The creature burst back, crashing into the wall with a screech that rattled the air. David staggered, his hands shaking from the force. Lyra's voice cut through the chaos. Do not waste it. Focus, feel it. Not too much, not too little. But her warning came too late. Another hunter slipped behind him, its shadow wrapping around his chest. David gasped as cold pierced into him. The golden light flickered, dimming. He felt his fear twist into despair, and with it, the spark inside him weakened. David, Lyra shouted, her silver light striking the shadow off him. She pulled him back, her voice fierce. Your fear feeds them. Your courage burns them. Choose which one you give. Her words struck like thunder. David clenched his fists, gasping for air. He thought of his parents, his lost friend, his neighbor's voice twisted by lies. He thought of everything he wanted to protect, even his broken, ordinary life. And with that, the golden fire inside him surged again. The hunter lunged once more, but this time David didn't step back. He met it head-on, his fist blazing like a comet. The golden spark exploded, brighter than before. The creature dissolved into dust, leaving only silence where it had stood. David's chest heaved, his arms trembling. He had destroyed it, not with weapons, not with Lyra's help, but on his own. The realization both terrified and thrilled him. But there was no time to celebrate. More hunters poured through the doorway, filling the room like a living tide of darkness. Lyra raised her glowing arms, her voice cutting the air. We cannot hold them here. David looked at her, sweat dripping down his face. Then where do we go? She didn't answer with words. Instead, she raised her hand to the wall, her silver light tearing open a circle of air itself. Behind it shimmered a strange tunnel of stars. Not space, not sky, but something in between. David's breath caught. You want me to step into that? Her eyes burned with urgency. If we stay, we die. If we run, you learn. David hesitated, the golden fire in his hands flickering with his doubt. Then the hunters hissed louder, their bodies twisting closer. He had no choice. He nodded, his voice low. Fine, but I'm not running forever. Lyra's lips curled with the faintest trace of a smile. You won't have to, she whispered. Together they stepped through the shimmering portal. Behind them, the house was swallowed by shadows, the hunters tearing it apart. The world David had known collapsed in on itself, and ahead of him stretched a path of stars, glowing brighter than anything he had ever imagined. The final choice. The tunnel of stars stretched endlessly, a river of light twisting around David and Lyra as they ran. Each step felt weightless, yet the pressure in his chest grew heavier. The world he had known was gone, swallowed by shadows, and ahead lay only the unknown. Lyra moved with steady purpose, her silver glow guiding the way. David followed, golden sparks still flickering from his hands. He glanced at her, his voice shaking. Where are we going? She didn't answer right away, her gaze fixed on the glowing path. Finally, she spoke, her voice low, to a place between worlds, where they cannot yet reach us. David swallowed, his throat dry. And then what? Lyra's silver eyes turned toward him, sharp and unreadable. Then you choose, she whispered. The words hit him harder than the battle. Choose what? He asked. Her cloak shifted in the strange wind, her glowing hands tightening. Whether to fight or to return to the life you left behind. David stumbled at her words, almost losing his step. His life? What life? His house was gone, his street lost, the safe normality of midnight forever broken. There's no going back, he muttered, his voice bitter, but Lyra's tone was colder. There's always going back, even if it means going blind. They reached the end of the star tunnel, where the light bent into a vast chamber of sky. It wasn't Earth, but it wasn't another planet either. It was a hollow space filled with floating fragments of stone and light, each one pulsing like a heartbeat. David's chest tightened. The place felt alive, watching him, testing him. Lyra stopped at the edge of a floating platform. Her cloak rippled as she turned to face him. "This is where the truth becomes choice," she said, her voice echoing. "You carry the spark, but the spark does not decide for you, you do." David's fists clenched, the golden glow brightening with his rising anger. "They attacked me. They destroyed my home. What choice do I have?" Lyra's eyes narrowed. "The choice to run, to hide, to let others suffer while you live, or the choice to fight, knowing you may never return to who you were." The silence stretched between them. David's heart pounded, his mind racing. All he had wanted was a quiet life, a simple night, but fate had dragged him into a war he never asked for. And yet, deep down, he knew there was no escape now. Before he could answer, the chamber shuddered. A deep vibration rolled through the stones, lights flickering. Lyra's face grew grim, her silver glow flaring brighter. "They are reaching through faster than I thought," she whispered. "David Spoon, Pani Krisin." From the edges of the chamber, shadows began to seep in, not fully formed hunters, but shapes testing the boundary, clawing against the light. The sight ignited something inside him, a fire he could no longer deny. He turned back to Lyra, his golden sparks blazing in his hands. "You said I must choose," he said, his voice steady now. "Then I choose not to run." For the first time since he had met her, Lyra's expression softened into something almost human. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Then you are not ordinary," she whispered. "You are what they fear most." The shadows pressed harder against the chamber, cracks spreading through the walls of light. Lyra raised her silver glow like a shield. David stepped beside her, his golden fire burning brighter with each heartbeat. The hunters hissed, their masks pressing through the cracks. David's jaw tightened, his fear transforming into resolve. "They want Earth," he said, his voice sharp. "Then they'll have to go through me first." The chamber shook violently, the first hunter forcing its way through. Its faceless mask gleamed with hunger. David's fists blazed, Lyra's hands flared. Together, they faced the storm. But even as they prepared to fight, David heard Lyra's whisper beneath the chaos. "This is only the beginning. The invasion has already started on your world." His chest clenched at her words. The thought of his neighbors, his city, his planet already under attack. The choice he had made was no longer about survival. It was about becoming something more than human. The hunter lunged, the chamber roared, and David, with golden fire in his hands, stepped forward into destiny.